So the two research questions that we were asking with this report were, are precipitation patterns on the eastern shore changing? And if so, how? And we sort of went in with the assumption that that there must be data to prove that rainfall patterns are getting more intense, more severe, because we hear it from everybody. The transportation folks, the stormwater management folks, the farmers, everybody says it doesn't rain like it used to. And so now we have data to actually back that up. So yes, it is raining different than it used to, and now we know that we know that it is getting worse, and we have data to back up how it's getting worse and where. And this is sort of looking mid-century, mid-21st century, how are patterns different than they are today? And so we don't necessarily get so specific to say it's going to be raining 33% more than it is today, or we're going to get 2 inches more rainfall per year. But we know relative to how it falls today that it's going to be quite a bit different. It's definitely incremental. You know, you can sit down with any farmer on the eastern shore and they'll tell you that it rains differently today than it did 15, 20 years ago. But to quantify it might be difficult. And so this report backs up that fact that the changes are so incremental and so slight every single year that it's hard to say this year versus last year things are so much dramatically worse. But looking into the future, we see that this is a trend that's going to continue. And so by looking at the year 2050 versus the year 2000, I think you're going to see quite a bit of difference between the rainfall patterns. When we think about climate change here in our part of Maryland, you know, we're thinking about sea level rise, we're thinking about warming temperatures, we're thinking about changing rainfall patterns, and a lot of it has to do with the Gulf Stream that goes up the Atlantic coast of the United States, and the slowing of the Gulf Stream pretty dramatically changes weather patterns and precipitation patterns in our area. And so when we talk about rainfall patterns changing, the underlying phenomenon there is the same as what is going to drive hurricanes to be less frequent and more intense, and a variety of other climate-related hazards. Most of what we were looking at was sort of the episodic rain event, and so what we saw is for the smaller, more intense rain events, the rain that falls during those events is going to increase pretty dramatically, and then over the longer, sort of the slow burn rainfall events, you know, over the course of several days, the overall rainfall that is associated with those events is going to increase as well. And so, sort of on the two ends of the spectrum, both are going to increase pretty dramatically, but less so, sort of in the middle of the spectrum. This is really written for community planners, stormwater managers, you know, county and municipal engineers thinking about the infrastructure for their communities. And so the recommendations that we provide are thinking about public infrastructure and community planning and how we can be better prepared for climate impacts. I think the most value add to this is shining a light on a data set or sort of an area of information that wasn't particularly well understood before this. And I'm excited that the University of Maryland, who conducted the research for us, is going to continue this study. They're going to do this thinking about infrastructure and transportation impacts across the entire state of Maryland. We were sort of the first guinea pig, we'll say, for the University of Maryland. But I think that we will see a justification in our work, and we'll really start to see acceptance of this, not just here on the Eastern Shore, but throughout the state of Maryland as this becomes more prevalent. This is definitely going to be a critical part of the climate adaptation planning that we do with our local government partners. This report was commissioned on behalf of the Eastern Shore Climate Adaptation Partnership, which is the regional work group that we have of local government planners, state government planners, academic and not-for-profit partners. And the goal of SCAP is to try to get everybody in a room together and learn more about climate vulnerabilities and collaboratively plan for the future of the region. So this is great information that we're armed with now, and I think this is going to be critical for building that better future for a variety of disciplines here on the Eastern Shore. I think the thing that's most surprising to me is the fact that the increase in the pattern of precipitation sort of comes in bands or in pockets across the region. I was expecting more of a broad general trend of increase, but we're going to see so much more rain sort of in the central part of Dorchester County and rural parts of Kent County and out towards Ocean City, and sort of interesting how it pops up in certain pockets. I'm not educated enough in terms of climate science to understand the underlying meteorological phenomena behind that. But I think it's interesting how that happens. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most critical information that we can get out to our partners is, you don't necessarily have to be concerned with global phenomena. This is what we expect to be happening right here in your own backyard. Now that we have the data, let's use the data and plan for it.